Hello and welcome to Glanbia's Dairy Focus. In this episode, I would like to focus on an issue that has cropped up in the last couple of years, and that might be a bit of a head scratcher for some of us on farm, and it's called summer scour in calves. Now, some herds struggle with it, others have never seen this before, but it's a quite severe scour and significant weight loss in calves a few weeks after they've been turned out. Quite often, you will see that these calves are also weak, lethargic, and probably because of a bit of malnutrition and their weakness, they might succumb to other diseases as well. They're more prone in picking up other diseases. You'll often find this being described as summer scour syndrome, and whenever something is called a syndrome in medical terms, that means we don't fully know what causes it and how it works. And for summer scour, this is genuinely the case. We do not know what causes it. We've ruled out the more common infectious causes of scour, so your normal infectious or your parasites, typically your coccidiosis, for example. What also needs to be ruled out is mineral imbalances in the calves. Basically, you need to do a forage analysis, a grass analysis, or a blood analysis of the calves to see if there's any mineral imbalances, to rule those out as well. But in general, from dealing with herds that have experienced summer scour in their calves, I've seen that most of the time it's only a small proportion of the calves that are affected. So it's 10-20% of the group of calves that are being turned out for the first grazing season that have this summer scour. And quite often the sort of common denominator in those herds is that the calves were turned out onto fairly lush, rich pasture. Sometimes also pasture that was fertilized not too long ago. So there is certainly a very strong suspicion that nitrogen plays a part here, and more specifically, non-protein nitrogen. The calves, having not fully developed the rumen just yet, and the rumen still growing and getting used to digesting forages, and especially fresh forage, a little imbalance in the nitrogen might upset the digestion there, and that might lead on to the summer scour. So the best solution for those calves is actually to be brought back inside off grass and be put on a nutritious forage, something like hay. After a few weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, the calves can be turned out to grass again. And usually at that time of the year, the grass has lost some of that richness anyway, but ideally you turn them out to a bit more stemmy, older grass so that they can have the fiber that's in that grass. Another solution would be to strip graze your calves, but I know that's not possible on every farm, where the calves then don't just eat the lush leafy part of the grass, but they're forced to actually also eat the stemmy bit and pick up the fiber that way. Some of the herds that I've dealt with, we actually went back further in time and looked at, well, could there be other underlying reasons why those calves were affected? And when you look back, and this is by no means the same for every herd, but in some herds, we actually went back to a few weeks before weaning. And we looked at, well, when weaning was supposed to start, or when the weaning process was started, were the calves actually eating that 1 kilo minimum or 1.5 kilos of concentrates in order to be on the weaning process? And some herds might have done a very abrupt weaning, and that also didn't help. So quite often I would advise those herds to really make sure, are the calves eating enough concentrates before you start weaning them, and have the weaning process over a longer period. So maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, some herds even up to 4 weeks, very gradual step down weaning process. When it comes to the weaning itself, once calves are taken off milk, make sure nothing else stressful happens to those calves at that time. So maybe delay turning them out by a week after they've been weaned. It's another factor that might help develop the rumen that little bit extra so it can cope with that nitrogen that the calves might experience. If you want any more information on that topic, please talk to your local Glanbia representative or log on to glanbiaconnect.com.